All right, guys, something we've wanted to do here for a long time to really help our customers at Life Elevated Trailers, and honestly, anyone who buys a Trails Us RPM Burandt, is do a really in-depth instructional walkthrough of how to use the trailer. So that if you ever have problems after hours, you can't get a hold of anybody, you can pull this video up. We'll section it out so you can see the different sections. And I'm going to go over in this video electric jacks, furnaces, fans, 110 power versus 12 volt power, charging, and a lot of other stuff that we get asked all the time that, it's hard to remember every single thing about a trailer. So I want a video here that you can reference and learn about your trailer and know how to troubleshoot it on the mountain, on vacation, in whatever place you're in, so that you don't end up stranded with no one to answer your questions. So I really hope this helps. Stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of information and hopefully it's good. All right, this video is mostly going to be for the 2023 trailers. There are going to be some variations if you have a previous year, but a lot of the information should translate as far as what you need to look for. The first thing I want to talk about is the electric jack. So on the front of your trailer, if you got an electric jack, the thing you really want to make sure that you pay attention to is that you know where your handle is for your electric jack. If your batteries die, if this shorts out, whatever happens, you don't want to be stuck in a position where you can't get your trailer up and down. So keep this handle with you, and this will allow you to raise and lower your jack manually without any power to the trailer, or if the jack is completely shorted out. All right, a question we get a lot is, how do I change the tire with that step hanging down like that in the way? We thought of that. It's super easy. This step actually pulls up and out of the way so that you can change your tire and then shove it right back down into place. So that's how you change a tire if you get a flat on the driver's side where the step is. All right, let's talk furnaces. This is probably the thing that people have the most trouble with, but they're actually very simple and they're very easy to diagnose what's going on if you are having issues with your furnace lighting or staying on. So there's just a few components that a furnace needs to light. It needs propane, it needs battery power, and it needs airflow. As long as it has those three things, it will light, barring that it's not receiving some fault code or a bad motherboard. So things to check when you go to light your furnace. Number one is that you use your thermostat correctly. So in a Burandt trailer, on your thermostat, you have an on-off switch right here. Click that over this way. That turns the thermostat on. On the bottom of the thermostat, you have a temperature selection switch. In the winter, I make sure mine's all the way up because I want my furnace to run continuously when it's drying my stuff out. This third thing you need to do is check that your timer is twisted past this half-hour mark so that it tells the furnace to click on. With all those things done, your furnace should click on and light. If it doesn't, the first thing to start with is outside the trailer, the propane. Let me show you that. All right, if you go to turn your furnace on and the fan comes on, you hear it start to blow and you hear it go click, 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 click. It doesn't light, and it does that a couple times and then shuts off. The first place to go look is to make sure that you have propane in your propane tanks and that the tanks are on. I know that's a simple thing, but I've probably taken 35, 40 calls over the years of people complaining their furnace won't light and their propane tanks were off because they turned them off for whatever reason. The next thing to check is to make sure that the window in your regulator is green, not red. If this window is red, it means there's no propane in the tanks. On that subject, in another video, I talked about putting gauges on your propane tanks. I love that so that I can just look and see how full my tanks are and know that I have propane. So if you verified you have propane, we'll go back inside and see what the next thing is to check. All right, you jumped in your trailer, you did all your stuff over here with your thermostat, you turned your timer, nothing happened. First thing to check, simplest thing, is we've moved the reset button that is usually on the furnace inside the cabinet to the outside. If that's clicked down to off, the furnace is not going to do anything. So make sure that that's up at the reset spot. Next thing to check is to make sure that you've got voltage in your batteries. You have a voltage gauge right here in every Burandt. It should be over 12. If you're in the 10s or even the low 11s, there's a good chance that your furnace is going to detect a low voltage error and it's not going to light until you charge your batteries up. So check those two things. If it does nothing, the third thing to check is your fuses. Down inside, right here, are all your main fuses for the trailer. Make sure that none of those are popped and they're all good. And then behind this panel as well is another set of fuses. None of these go to the furnace though, but it always is a good thing, just good practice if things aren't working, to check that all your fuses are not popped and working properly. So again, check that you've got voltage, and check that this switch is hit up. All right, so if you have your thermostat on correctly, you have your timer twisted, you have propane in your tanks, you can hear it running through your regulator. You'll actually hear a little bit of a hissing noise when propane starts to flow out of your tanks, and all your fuses and everything are going, and this does not light. What will happen is there's a little red light behind this grate in the back of the furnace. If you shut off the lights and close the doors and get it dark in here, you'll be able to see that red light flashing. However many flashes it does, it's telling you what error code that is. And maybe you have a bad cell switch, bad motherboard, an ignition lockout. The other thing to check on that, if it will not light, is your exhaust port on the outside of the trailer. If you haven't lit your furnace for months, there's a good chance that there could be a wasp nest or some insect has built a nest inside your exhaust and is plugging it, so you aren't getting the airflow you need for the furnace to light. Hopefully, by checking those things, you can know what's going on, work through the problem, and then if you get the error code, you can even diagnose that and work through that problem as well. So on your furnace, make sure you've got battery voltage, you've got propane, and you've got power and airflow, and then you'll be totally fine. All right, let's talk about the kill switch, the fan, and some of the switches here. So in every Burandt 2023, they have a main kill switch here. This kills power to everything except for your furnace. You can't shut a furnace off to 0 when it's running full bore because it will melt the internal components. So if you hit this and your furnace doesn't shut off, it's because it's not tied into this. It will keep running. The way you turn your furnace off is to click it off here or to allow this timer to run out of time. So those two things will shut your furnace off, and those two things alone. This has nothing to do with it. On the wall here, you've got 4 switches. This controls your overhead lights, your lower lights, your low light over your door, and your roof vent fan. So your roof vent fan has a switch on the wall, and then on the fan itself, it also has 4 more things that can turn it on or off, which seems like a lot, but they all do something different. You have your speed selector, which has 0, so it can be turned off there. You've got your temperature selector, where it will automatically turn on and off based on the temperature of it. During the winter, I just turn that all the way up because it's never going to get hot enough to turn off, and I don't want it to turn off when I'm drying my stuff out inside the trailer. The third thing you've got is the cover. If you have the cover all the way shut on it, it actually shuts the roof vent off. And the fourth thing is the direction selector. You can have it in the middle, and then it won't go either direction, and you can have it exhaust or intake based on whatever you need the trailer to do. So we add this option to every single one of our trailers because it helps a ton in the drying process. But it does have basically 5 different ways it can be turned off. Actually 6. The kill switch turns it off, the switch on the wall turns it off, and any one of these 4 things can turn it off. So make sure you go through all that if it isn't turning on. All right, let's talk about 110 volt power versus 12 volt power. 110 volt power is the power in your house. So when you plug your trailer in at your house right here, this puts 110 volt power into the trailer. The batteries inside the trailer, which were in the floor that we saw earlier, those are 12 volt, okay? So when you plug this trailer in, what your house is doing is putting 110 power into this, and then up in the front of this trailer, there's a converter. And what that's doing is it's changing the 110 power, and it's turning it to 12 volt and pushing it into your batteries and charging your batteries. So unless you have a solar panel on your trailer, the only way to charge this thing is to plug it in right here to 110 power, whether that's plugged into your house, into a generator, it doesn't matter, but that's how you charge your batteries. Those two systems are completely separate. If you're not plugged in right here, none of the 110 outlets inside the trailer work. And all of your 12 volt stuff does not work off of this plug. But let me dig into that a little more. When you plug in, it will immediately start pushing power to your batteries, so your 12 volt stuff will start working. But those are independent systems. The batteries that control your furnace, your lights, your fans, your electric jack, if you have one, all of that is 12 volt. The only 110 that this trailer uses are the outlets inside and the battery charger inside to charge your batteries. All right, guys, if something isn't working in your trailer, the first thing to look at are the fuses. If your trailer is not charging when you plug it into the house, that is this green fuse right here. Check to make sure that this green fuse is not blown. And then the battery charger that actually charges your batteries is underneath this little topper here. You take out these little screws, pull this up, and you'll see the battery converter down underneath this. And that has 2 fuses in it as well that you can check to make sure those are working. And that should solve your problem if your trailer isn't charging when you plug it in. Now up under the front of here, you've also got a 60 amp fuse right here that's a main power fuse, another 40 amp fuse right here that's a main power fuse, and then a smaller 15 amp, and this is a resettable fuse right here as well. So those are the fuses that you need to check in the battery compartment. And then right here, if your USB ports are not charging, you've got fuse 3 is a USB port. If your stereo is not coming on, that's fuse 2. Lights aren't working, fuse 1. Your vent's not coming on, that's fuse 10. Your propane detector right here, that's fuse 6. If you have a fuel cell, fuse 5 is your fuel cell pump, or your fuel pump. So if any of those things aren't working, the first thing to start with is to check that all your fuses here are not popped. And this is all 12 volt power. A common question we get a lot too is, how does water get out of my trailer? So besides the obvious places, out your doors, out the cracks in the floor and everything, you have a drain plug right here in the corner. You got a drain plug right up there in the front. And then in the bottom of your spare tire compartment, there are holes punched to allow water to run out. And in the bottom of your battery compartment, there are holes punched to let water drain out. If you ride the trees and you load dirt and stuff in here, you'll get a fair amount of dirt and stuff inside these, and I've seen these holes get plugged. On my trailer, I just I drilled a bigger hole in the floor of it, and a couple times in winter, I opened it up to make sure that water is draining out of these and that the holes are not plugged. So that is an important thing to check. Probably the only thing you need to check, though, when it comes to draining. People will also ask about the in-floor heat. Because there's holes in the floor, they're worried about what happens to the water and the dirt and debris and everything that can fall into these channels. It's very simple. These channels are wide. They're about 5 inches wide, and they're about 2 inches deep underneath the trailer. So they are big. So it would take just an insane amount of dirt or water to plug those up in any way. And then they do have drain plugs in those channels so that if you did have a big obstruction in there, you can easily flush them out and get whatever's in there out of those. So that's not an issue. And then at the back of the trailer for 2023, we added a drain channel right here with plugs in the corner so that all the water that sheets to the back of your trailer goes into this track and then runs right out the sides, making it so that water escapes this trailer no problem. All right, probably the most counterintuitive piece on a Burandt is the fuel pump in order to get fuel out of it, but if you know how to use it, it's very simple. So when you want to get fuel out of this trailer, you push and hold the off button until both buttons blink like that. Now you hit the on button and that activates the pump. Turn the pump off. When you hit off, what it does is it actually runs the pump backward to pull the fuel out of your hose and make it so you don't have fuel dripping when you're done. But again, you have to hold the off button until you get 2 flashes on the screen telling you that it's ready to go. That light will stay lit up. It'll also give you a fuel level here, and this will just go off automatically. So hopefully that helps if you're ever needing to turn your fuel on and can't figure it out. One last thing on the furnace. In the extreme cold weather, Burandt, you have the two switches to reset the furnaces are here, and then you also have a toggle switch up here on the Goose where you can turn off one of the furnaces and only run one if you're not needing to run the entire trailer. So yeah, that's one little thing on the furnaces in these that is different than the bumper poles. All right, let's talk solar. So this is a solar charge controller. What this tells you is that there's a panel getting sunlight and it's pushing voltage into the battery. It'll tell you how many amps it's doing that and all those different things. However, if the trailer sits somewhere in the shade where the solar panel is not getting any juice, or everything gets left on for a long, long time and you kill the batteries, once the batteries have died, this will not come back on automatically. So this charge controller runs off the batteries. It does not run off the solar panel. So when your batteries die, this will then display an E01 or an E03 code. And what you have to do is actually disconnect your panel voltage from this, charge your batteries back up, and then disconnect this one time to reset it. And you'll see your batteries here and your panels here. You can disconnect your positive lead from your battery, pull it out, and then put it back in. That will reset it. This will come back on, power back up. Then you reconnect your solar panel voltage to that, and then this will work again. But it will not automatically restart itself. It has to be manually reset if you let your batteries completely die. Little note on that, when you pull this wire out, if you're in broad daylight, there's about 19 or 20 volts coming through this wire. So if you take this wire out and then you tap it on this, you're gonna get a big spark and you could short your panel out. So when you pull this out, be careful, pull it out, hold it separate, tape it off, get your batteries charged up, and then undo your positive here. This will also spark if you touch it to metal, and put it back in. So that's how to reset your solar charge controller if your batteries die completely. All right, I want to talk about the powered rear door real quick, but before I do that, I want to show you how the standard door on a Burandt opens and closes and how light and easy it is. So when you pull this door, you can just barely assist it and it'll drop slow and barely touch the ground. The door is very light, it's very well sprung. When you add the power option, all you're doing is changing out your arm power right here for the ram. So I'll show you here how you can disconnect the ram and then the door will open and close just like a non-powered door. You have a center leg right here with a powered ram that is assisting to lift or lower your trailer. Common misconception about this is that this is doing more than it actually is. So if your power rear door ramp or your power rear door motor goes bad, or you blow the fuse, or your battery's dead and you can't get it up or down, all you do is pull this pin out and that will drop out the bottom there, and you can actually there's some zip ties and stuff you can cut to get it further out of the way, but then this door will open and close just like your standard door without the power on it. These springs are still the exact same springs as are on the door without the power option, so you can lift and lower this door safely. It'll be no heavier than your standard door without the motor assist. Why when you buy from Life Elevated Trailers, you truly have the best buying experience, because you get a trailer with all the options that you need that have been tested by us. If you like this video, make sure to smash that subscribe button.